Are you a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener? Of course you are. If you're in the market to buy or sell a home, call real estate superstar Mike Burgoyne today at 314-753-4060 or email him at mike@strikewithmike.com to earn special rates today.
A proven winner on the hockey rink, Joe Wolf knows what it takes to be the best. That's why he has the best rates in the area and only has rave reviews of his work with Wolf Power Washing. Get that siding back to its original color with Joe. Call him at 314-420-5434. That's 314-420-5434. Hello, Broberg and Holloway fans, and welcome to Let's Go Blues Radio. This is Season 13, Episode 45. That's right, it's the Cody Rutkowski episode of the original and longest-running blues hockey podcast. This is episode number 476 all-time. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Contact Mike at mike@strikewithmike.com or call him at 314-753-4060 and get started selling your current home or buying a new home today. And by Wolf Power Washing. If you're in the St. Louis area and need the services of a professional power washer, Joe Wolf is your guy. Call him at 314-420-5434 and get the best prices in the area. On today's show, we welcome in longtime Blues PA announcer Tom Calhoun. We talk about his ridiculous streak of games done for the Blues. I mean, he's been doing it since the 80s. He's got some stories for us from the old barn. Also, very exciting, there's an upcoming project for Blues podcast fans. So if you like to podcast Blues stuff, clearly you do if you're listening to this show, definitely stay tuned for that. He's got something very exciting to announce. And of course, just a lot more. Tom Calhoun's been a great friend of the show, really, since we've started. So always good to have Tom join us. So we'll get to talking about Tom here in a bit. Obviously, there is some big Blues news that I wanted to go ahead and talk about very quickly at the start of the show here. So this show is airing on Wednesday, August 21st. I am recording this late Tuesday night on August 20th. Today, so tomorrow, will be yesterday. If you're listening Thursday, it'll be 2 days ago. Friday, 3 days ago, and so on. The Edmonton Oilers chose not to match the Blues' offers to Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. This means they are officially St. Louis Blues now. So we talked about it last week. It is official. They are St. Louis Blues. In case you missed our last show, I wanted to go ahead and share some quick highlights on some thoughts from Curt, Bill, and me. Enjoy. And we got some great comments here from, here it is, Doug Paddock in our YouTube chat. He says, Friedman said Broberg was looking for 1.8 and Holloway 1.2. They should have signed them for their asking price and then not sign one of Henrik Skinner or Arvidsson on the first day of free agency.
Yeah.
100%. This is why I am all for offer sheets becoming more of a thing in the NHL, because you know that the Oilers were like, well, hey, these guys are restricted free agents. As long as we figure this out before October 1st, we're good. We're cake. So just go ahead and sign these guys in free agency, because offer sheets are such a rarity. But this is a masterstroke again by Armstrong.
Two offer sheets.
Two offer sheets.
Right. Yeah.
Like, such a dick move, but I love it. Give me more of this every summer.
I was saying it's like the most punk rock thing you can do in the NHL, and Armstrong pulled it off perfectly. Like one of the most straight-laced guys in the league. I love it. But on the Edmonton side of it, right? There's talk. So it's really Jeff Jackson, who's their CEO, and he was the interim GM after Ken Allen left, and he's the one that went on the fucking spending spree, signed 13 fucking players on July 1st, and didn't take care of this business first, right? And so I Edmonton Oilers Reddit and other places on the internet were talking about how he's trying to throw Holland under the bus for he had an opportunity to sign them both back in January and he didn't. Well, you had an opportunity to sign them before you signed 13 other dudes, and you didn't. And then you went and you hired one of the most hated men in hockey to be your GM.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna love this move.
Yes. There were some Edmonton fans on social media, which, take with a grain of salt. They felt Broberg was their second best defenseman. That's 3 times? No. Yeah, about 3 times what he was asking for, right?
Yeah.
So
He was asking for 1.4.
And being a cup team, a cup contending team, Edmonton, they could have easily won the cup last season, but they didn't work out. But, they always say how hard it is to keep a cup team together. Because of contracts expiring, players need increases because they're playing well, the team's doing well, they have to get traded or let go, and overpaying depth players when you've got your high end guys coming up to resign. Oof, that's rough. For Edmonton, but this deal has so many levels as far as how it fucks over Edmonton different ways and why it's just so great for the Blues. It's just it's fun to talk about.
Well, I hope you all enjoy hearing from Fritz as well, Bill's dog there at the very beginning, and obviously some comments from our friends that listen live. Remember, we do live shows all season. Summers, we don't do them as much. We've only done, I think, 2 or 3 so far, 3 so far this season. But remember, during the season, join us every week live. We have so much fun with our live listeners. But some of the quotes that came out today. First one I wanted to mention, one that has been making the rounds in social media for all of hockey fans, not just Blues and Oilers fans, from Doug Armstrong on basically on tendering offer sheets to restricted free agents. He said, quote, "If there's a GM code not to do offer sheets, nobody emailed it to me. It was reported I wouldn't have done this to Kenny Holland. That's not the truth. I do it to my mother if she was managing the Oilers." I love his quotes. I've had my issues with Doug Armstrong over the years. The Kasperi Kapanen signing recently was the last slight rant I went on about him, just because I don't understand. Especially now, I really don't understand. He's an AHL player, I think, when you look at this roster. But I've had my issues with him in the past. But, man, his quotes, he's always got good ones. The stab in the eye one. I mean, he's always had so many good ones. So this is another one. I do it to my mother if she was managing the Oilers. That's just fantastic. So love hearing that. And I actually never believed any of that either. When he said if Ken Holland, a lot of people were saying that if Ken Holland was still GM, he wouldn't have done that to him. I think that's bullshit. Doug Armstrong, when he knows what he wants, he goes and gets it. I don't think it mattered who was GM. I do think that some people did think that him and Ken Holland's relationship would mean he wouldn't do it. No way. So Stan Bowman had a couple quotes as well today. He had a press conference talking about it. He said today one of the things he said was, quote, "We took our time and exhausted all opportunities and decided not to match. This became a business decision, short and long term. We moved forward with best moves going into training camp." And there was a lot of people speculating about the Oilers possibly matching. They made the Cody Ceci trade, which I still don't understand. San Jose and Mike Greer. Mike Greer basically, hey, anyone in the Pacific Division, you're having cap trouble, call Mike Greer. He will be glad to help you. Whatever he can do to help you out and make you a better team, too, because that's what he did with Vegas at the trade deadline. Don't understand it. I don't see him lasting long-term in San Jose. If they're smart, they might dump him. But either way, still, I think there was some talk about that. I kind of thought the whole time, I'm like, they're just not cap compliant right now. I don't know if they're going to match. I don't think they will, because they were still $7.3 million over the cap before the CC trade, and after that they were still over the cap. So I just think, they're just trying to get cap compliant. The season's a little over a month away at this point, about a month and a half. So think that was cap compliancy speaking there. But I also want to mention in a separate transaction, St. Louis is sending its 2028 third-round draft pick and an unsigned 2023 fifth-round draft selection. His name is Paul Fisher. They're going to Edmonton for future considerations. This is considered a separate transaction. I was wondering, because there's really nothing's come out about what this trade was. I have to wonder if this was a final hour deal by Armstrong to finalize Bowman's decision not to match. Like, I wonder if there was Armstrong was getting a little antsy, and maybe he was like, man, I need to sweeten the deal here and make sure he doesn't match, because there's a chance they do. So I don't know. I think that this was just a sweeten the pot deal. And they do get a prospect in Paul Fisher. And if you don't know who Paul Fisher is, I did pull this from Jacob Punturi of SportsIllustrated.com. He says the Blues selected Fisher in the fifth round of the 2023 NHL Draft. The American-born defenseman developed over the last few years in the USHL and United States National Team Development Program. The left-handed blue liner also just completed his freshman season at the University of Notre Dame. In 34 games, the 19-year-old had 2 goals and 16 points. The early projection on him is that he is a solid skater who is even better in his own end and defending the rush. The production hasn't been there yet, but he possesses some offensive upside. If he can unlock that with the Oilers, he has the makings of a bottom-pairing defender in the NHL. I'm kind of aching this to Tyler Tucker, who was a late pick, 7th-round pick to be exact. And we just kind of saw him continue to develop his game, come through the ranks, made the NHL's 7th-round pick. We had our issues with Tyler Tucker last season. I don't want to, get back into that too much because I don't think he's going to see NHL ice in a Blues jersey again. But still, he was a success story. And I kind of see that with this Paul Fisher kid that, maybe they got something here. Maybe this is a guy who's going to continue to progress his game, and in 3-4 seasons, he's a good bottom pairing defenseman for the Oilers. Maybe kind of a shutdown guy a little bit, maybe late in games. So the Blues, I think right now they're not concerned about getting a guy like that. They got Philip Broberg, which was the defenseman they wanted. So I completely understand why this trade was made, if that was the case. Just a last hour, hey, Stan, sweeten the pot here. We'll give you these guys too. We'll give you a draft pick in 3 years, and we'll give you this Paul Fisher kid. Don't sign those offer sheets. So there you go. And of course, and you kind of heard Curt Price talk about it here in one of the clips I just shared. The Oilers fans' narrative is pretty hilarious. It's, and I think we all do this as fans. We all kind of have the bipolar disorder where we are excited and then we're down on it, and then we're like, no, okay, bye, see you later. Whatever the deal is. Oilers fans have been very anemic with this, and it's understandable. They're in the win now mentality. So a lot of it is, first of all, it was these guys want to go play somewhere else. They don't want to play for a cup contender. See ya. And then it was, well, they got the money. They should match them because they're first-round picks and they could develop into something great. And then once it was official that Stan Bowman wasn't going to match the offers, all of a sudden the narrative became, yeah, good riddance. See you later. We don't need them. We're going to go win a cup. So that's just kind of funny to see. To me, the correct narrative, and I'll say this in Stan Bowman's defense, which I never thought I would say those words, the Oilers are in a win-now mode right now, and they just can't spend that kind of money on people who don't help them win now. And I don't think Broberg and Holloway are really in a spot to be difference makers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this year they'll step into the Blues and be fantastic. But I just don't think they're in a spot right now or even next season to be there. So I think for them, for Stan Bowman, this was the correct decision. Right now, in this moment, great decision by Stan Bowman to not match. Now, again, going back to what Bill Day said in that clip, there was a lot of blunders made. They should have been signed in January, February, March, April, May, June, July. There are so many times these guys, they had so much time to sign them and get this done, but instead they went out and spent so much money on free agents and went over the cap already. That made it a no-brainer for me as a GM in terms of Doug Armstrong or any other GM in the league to try and poach players from them because their hands were tied. So I think Stan Bowman stepping in when he did, stepping in when the team's already over the cap, this was the right move he had to make. Again, they're in win now. You just got to, as an Oilers fan, you just got to go along for the ride. Well, as fun as this has been to talk about, and we're going to talk about it plenty more, I'm sure, this summer going into next season, so make sure you tune in to future episodes. We've got an awesome guest right now. Like, this is a great episode just because we're celebrating what happened, but we've got Tom Calhoun here, folks. Tom's one of our favorite people we've ever had on the show. This is his second or third time, and we are very happy to welcome Tom back in. So after this commercial break, you will hear from the longtime Blues PA announcer, part of my childhood and adulthood in terms of being a Blues fan, Tom Calhoun. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
We'll return after these messages.
As a hockey player, Mike Burgoyne knows a thing or two about making the perfect play. And when it comes to real estate, he's always ready to score the winning goal for his clients. If you're a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener looking to score the home of your dreams, you'll receive special rates with Mike. Go ahead, shoot some questions his way, and he'll have the answer quicker than Curtis Joseph on a breakaway.
Curtis Joseph got the pedal down!
Any barriers? Mike will mow them down like Chris Pronger in front of the net. He'll score you your dream home or sell your existing home faster than a Brett Hall one-timer.
Flip past the Hall, he shoots, he scores!
See Burgoyne's real estate prowess in action today by emailing him at mike@strikewithmike.com or by calling 314-753-4060. That email again is mike@strikewithmike.com, and that phone number is 314-753-4060. Getting Mike Burgoyne on your team will be the boost your power play needs.
Well, honey, I just priced the power washing for the house, and I think we should just move and condemn this place. It'll be cheaper.
Did you try Wolf Power Washing?
Who?
Oh, I just saw this guy win the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament and thought he was attractive, so I looked him up on social media, and it turns out he's the owner and proprietor of Wolf Power Washing. He claims he has the best prices in town.
But does he use non-flammable, non-toxic chemicals that are safe for Wolfie and our son, little Magnus?
Yes, he ensures there'll be no residue left behind, and he doesn't use any volatile vapors.
Well, this fella sounds like a dream. I just wish I knew how to contact him.
Oh, I know how. You can reach him at 314-420-5434.
314-420-5434, and his name is Joe Wolf of Wolf Power Washing?
That's right.
But how did you know his number so quickly?
I'll never tell.
Wait, what?
That's Wolf Power Washing at 314-420-5434. And make sure to tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
All right, we are back from break, and I am joined by Mr. Tom Calhoun. You know him as the PA announcer for the St. Louis Blues. You might also know him as the PA announcer for the Gateway Grizzlies, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Tom has called every preseason, postseason, exhibition, and regular season game played by the Blues since January 3rd, 1987. Of course, home games is what we're talking about. Tom, you've been on multiple times, but thank you very much for coming on again.
Appreciate the visit, Jeff. Looking forward to it.
So what is your streak at now? Do you know it by heart?
Yeah, I don't know if it's exactly the number, but I'm right around 1,675 games at this point. Yeah.
That is so crazy. I mean, I know that, you've had to brave winter storms. I'm sure you've had illnesses. Was there ever a time where you're like, it's just not going to happen, I'm not going to make it tonight, but you had to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and go?
I'd say, Jeff, over the years, there's probably been 4 or 5 of those times where I probably should have stayed home. Either I was dealing with laryngitis or some kind of a bug of some sort, stomach bug or whatever. But somehow or other, I pulled it together and made it into the game. And the truth is, once I got 400 or 500 games in a row, I said, this is pretty cool streak I've got going here. It's going to take a whole lot to keep me home. And there's been those 4 or 5 times. And then back in 2017, I did some pretty serious lifting as part of a deck project I did at home. I was throwing around concrete bags, and I really injured my lower back pretty badly, to the point where I was having trouble walking more than like 25 feet without having to sit down and rest. And I called Trevor Nickerson, who's my supervisor with the Blues at the time, and I told him, I said, man, I can barely walk more than a few feet without really needing some rest. So I was going through physical therapy and all of that. And he said, well, if you can get to the building, we'll have a wheelchair ready for you when you get there, so you can get to your position. In those days, I was still working down at ice level. And I said, well, I appreciate the offer, but I'll manage. And somehow I did. I toughed it out, got to the microphone and got through it. So there's been some times, but I just didn't want to let something that I couldn't try to push through, stop the streak.
Yeah, I hear you. And I'll say there's even been times where I've been concerned going to the game myself, because I remember, probably 10 years ago now, there was a real bad ice storm. And I want to say the Blues were playing the Sharks. And I had tickets, and they were even saying, like, we expect maybe 100 people here tonight. And I thought, man, are the players, are the officials, is the rink announcer, like all these people that are involved in you think about the players and the coaches, but there's so much more that goes into a home game. I even thought, I remember in my head driving there, 10 miles an hour down Highway 40, thinking, is Tom Calhoun going to be able to make it? There's so many times that you have those thoughts, like, yeah, man, am I going to make the game? But you don't think about the people who actually work in the building and have to be there.
Yeah, there's been a few weather situations where I actually left the house around noon, just so I could get there and make sure I would get there in plenty of time, because the roads were bad, or there was a blizzard going on or something. I remember one time I got there like about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because I took the 4-wheel drive in and wanted to make sure I could navigate the roads and the bridges. And I got there, like I said, about 1 o'clock, and I just happened to run into Davis Payne, who was the coach at the time, in the parking garage on my way in. And I said, boy, lovely weather we're having, huh? He goes, yeah, there's not going to be a game tonight. And I don't remember, I think it was Colorado who was the opponent that night. And they actually called the game off and rescheduled it. I think it's the only time that's ever happened in my history with the Blues anyway, because there was supposed to be more weather throughout the evening and overnight. And Colorado was playing the next night, I think in Dallas, and they had to get out of the airport before it got worse. And so I I got in there about 1 o'clock and got the word that the game was canceled. So I turned around and drove right back home. So my streak actually includes a game that wasn't played.
There you go. That's true.
So I don't count that one, but yeah, I did show up.
Do you know, in terms of other PA announcers and even other sports, maybe even just in hockey, is there another streak like this around for another team's PA announcer?
I don't know if there's an active one, Jeff, but I've asked that question a number of times among the NHL PA announcers. we have a Facebook group, the NHL PA Brotherhood, and we exchange pronunciations and other information on the group. And Lou Nolan in Philadelphia is their PA guy, and he's been doing PA for the Flyers several years longer than I have. I think he started late 60s, early 70s, somewhere in that time, because he started right out of college, and he's still doing the games. And I've asked him several times. I said, "Do you have a consecutive game streak?" And I've never gotten a straight answer. So I guess he doesn't have a streak. That's the only thing I can assume.
Yeah, of course. He missed a game, and he doesn't want to tell you because he doesn't want to admit that your streak is longer.
Well, perhaps, but he's a great guy, and I would never say anything, derogatory about the guy. But he doesn't want to give me a straight answer. Anyway, I think there are streaks much longer than mine in other sports, because think about it, in baseball, there's a lot more games that are played, and I think there was a guy who did pro football games. I want to say New Orleans Saints or somebody who's been doing it practically since the Saints were formed, but they don't have as many games, of course, in a football schedule as we do in hockey. So that would be more like a consecutive game streak for football. If you want to say my streak is only a National Hockey League streak, that's fine, and I've got a pretty good one going there. But if you want to include other sports, I really can't give you a good answer on that.
Yeah, I wonder. I know U-Man for the Cardinals. He's been doing it, as long as I can remember. You got to, like you said, with football being less games, baseball is more games. So even if he's been doing it less time than you, I guess there's a chance that his streak is technically longer than yours. But as far as I know, you've been around the Blues doing this job longer than he's been doing the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the same time when he started the Cardinals and I started with the Blues. I talked to U-Man when he went into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame last September. And, there was that time where he was suspended by the Cardinals, and he doesn't like to talk about it a whole lot, and I understand that. But he did what do you call it, a stunt, I guess, on his radio show on Casey back in the early 90s. And it didn't go over very well, and the Cardinals suspended him for a year. And I think he missed an entire season, and then came back to continue on with the Cardinals. But so he doesn't have a streak per se, but that doesn't stop him from being really great at what he does and being an icon here in St. Louis.
Yeah, you mentioned the brotherhood of NHL PA announcers, but obviously we mentioned U-Man, and then there's other PA announcers obviously across the St. Louis area who do various other sports. Even just some high school. I know I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I used to work with a fella at KFNS that he did a lot of the high school baseball PA announcing. Is there like you mentioned the brotherhood for the NHL. Is there a brotherhood for like St. Louis PA guys that you talk to a lot?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if there is. It's gotten by me. But my cousin Gary, who's a little older than me, he's been doing Altoff high school football games in Belleville for a long time. So it kind of is in the family, that PA gene, I guess. And if there is such a group in the St. Louis area, I'm sure he would know about it, but I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think you would know about it. I would hope they'd want to include you. So. You've been around a while, so obviously experience means a lot to a lot of people in a lot of different industries. So I would think you would know about it.
Yeah, I would think it probably would have gotten to me somehow or other. Yeah.
So again, so you've been doing the Blues for a long time. What was your first date?
First day that I did the Blues PA, that would have been January 4th, I believe, of 1987. The story there is why in January, you would ask? Well, Charlie Hodges, who was the Blues PA announcer before me, and he also worked in the front office in the media relations department. He was doing the PA, and in the middle of that season, the 86-87 season, he accepted a job with Anheuser-Busch, the Bud Sports division, which used to produce a lot of sports events and such. And he accepted a job with them. And they had a rule at the time that you couldn't moonlight, do other jobs. And so he had to quit the Blues PA announcing. And I was working at KXOK Radio at the time, which back in the 80s, KXOK actually had the rights to broadcast Blues games. And so I was in the sports department there, working with Dan Kelly and Ron Jacober at the time. And Ron called me into his office one afternoon in, I guess, December, and he said, we got a call from Susie Matthew with the Blues, and she's looking for a new PA announcer because Charlie can't keep doing it. Are you interested in that? And I said, well, yeah, maybe. I really wasn't terribly excited about the idea because at that time I was trying to forward my broadcasting career, and I was interested in doing play-by-play and things like that. And PA announcing just wasn't hitting my hot button at the moment. But I said, yeah, I'll go over and talk to her. So I got an appointment with Susie, and she said, would you do this for the rest of the season? And then we'll deal with it after the season's over. And I said, okay, fine. They weren't paying hardly anything in those days. And so, I did it mostly as a favor to Susie to get started. And so, I worked January, February, March, and somewhere towards the end of the regular season, she called down on the ring down phone from the press box down to where I was working at the scorer's bench. She said, can you see me after the game? I said, sure. And I was wondering what I had done wrong. and so I went into her office after the game. She said, Tom, everybody in the organization really loves the way you're doing the PA. And, we'd really love for you to come back and work another season for us. Would you consider it? And I said, well, yeah, I'll consider it. Give me a couple of days to think about it. So I talked about it with my wife and went back in, I think, before the next game and met with her again. And I said, Susie, I can't really continue to do this for the amount of money that you guys are paying me. I've got young kids and, I want to go to their sports events and, band concerts and all of those kind of things. I'm missing a lot of that stuff being here in the evenings. And the next thing she said is the key to my streak and my longevity with the team. She said, Tom, we will make it worth your time. And, I'll always remember that because she was true to her word. She made whatever arrangements were necessary to get me paid at a reasonable level. And, I've been there ever since. And the 5 ownerships I've worked for have all taken care of me pretty well. So I do appreciate what they said then, what she said then, and what all my other subsequent employers have said to keep me going.
That's fantastic. And I've only heard tremendous stories about Susie Matthew, so that's not shocking at all to hear that she was a good person to you and wanted to make sure that it was worth your time to do this and it wasn't just going to be a favor forever.
Yeah, she was tough when she needed to be. And but she was also a mother figure to most of the people that worked for the Blues back in those days. And there's a reason that they put her into, they gave her a special recognition at last year's Blues Hall of Fame event. And so, she deserves all kinds of recognition for being one of the first female executives in professional sports at that level. So, and she, she's always been a great friend besides a boss in those days.
Yep. So before the show, before we started recording, I stood up and showed you my T-shirt, which I'll do again for our viewing audience. But you said you had a story, and so I'll stand up here.
Yeah.
January 23rd, 1993. That is the Curtis Joseph versus Tim Chevrolet fight. We've talked about it all the time on this show. What do you remember about that night?
Well, it was a January night, as your T-shirt indicates, and it was a game with the Detroit Red Wings, of course, because Tim Chevrolet was in goal for them. And I don't remember exactly why, but there was a lot of animosity between the two teams at that particular point in time. And we had Kelly Chase on our team and other guys who could handle themselves in a scrum if one developed. And right as the game got underway, Chase gets into it with oh gosh, I'm going to forget the guy's name now.
Was it Jim Cummins?
I think it was Jim Cummings. Yeah. Down in the one corner of the rink, and that started it. And before you know it, all the guys are paired off on the ice, and all hell is breaking loose. And the first guy that the officials grabbed to put into the penalty box, which in those days was the visitors' penalty box, was located right next to my announcing position. The first guy they put in the penalty box was everybody's recognized toughest guy in the league, Bob Probert. So Bob Probert is put in the penalty box next to me. In those days, we had a uniformed police officer who sat in the visitors' penalty box just because. And Jim Mayer, who is now the head of security, the NHL security for the Blues, was that uniformed officer on that particular night. Well, as all hell broke loose on the ice, quite a bit of hell was breaking loose in the stands. People were fighting one another and throwing beers and all that kind of stuff that used to go on. Well, Jim goes up in the stands to break up some of that stuff. So here I am with Bob Probert next to me, while all the stuff on the ice, the Chevrolet Joseph fight and all the other scrums are going on. Well, a couple guys behind the penalty box, right behind the glass, are yelling, you know what's, at Bob Probert. So he takes it upon himself then to get up on the bench and try to climb up over the glass to get after these guys. So I'm sitting there watching all of this, and I see Probert starting to go over the glass. And I think, well, I've got nothing better to do. I guess since Jim Mayer's not here, I better grab Probert by the trunks and pull him back into the penalty box. Well, as soon as I grabbed him by the trunks, he looks down over his shoulder at me and says, "You don't want to do that." I said, "You're right, Bob. Sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." So luckily, a few moments later, one of the officials, one of the linesmen, came over and said, Proby, sit back down. You don't want to get kicked out of the game." So luckily, he listened to the guy and sat back down. And so after I announced all the penalties and everything that went on, and after we witnessed the fight between Joseph and Chevrolet, I made my announcements. Things calmed down. Play restarted. Probert's sitting next to me amongst 4 or 5 other guys who were in the penalty box. He taps me on the shoulder, and I look over at him. I said, "Yeah, Proby, what?" He goes, "What the blank were you thinking?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm an announcer. I'm not a policeman. So I don't know what I was thinking." But it was an exciting time, that's for sure. And luckily, Proby had a great sense of humor, and he understood that I was only trying to be helpful, and he let it go at that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, how many guys in that moment were thinking, what am I doing here? Like
Yeah.
Chevelday and Joseph in a fight, and how many other guys were dropping the mitts that didn't normally drop the mitts that game. And so, yeah, you were just reacting like everybody else was, like, I need to do something.
Yeah. So, it was just one of those moments that occur and you don't expect anything to be memorable at that moment, but it's a great story, a great moment that I've told that story several times and everybody usually gets a kick out of it.
It's a great
I I don't mind I don't mind being the brunt of that joke. So
That's a good one to be the brunt of.
yeah.
So clearly you've seen some. I mean, looking back at the early '90s, Blues, Red Wings, Blues, Blackhawks, and then even in the mid 2000s, there was a couple melee fights that happened. So I always think about it because there's times where you are on the PA and you're going. It seems like for 10 minutes because you're having to list all of these penalties. How what do you have to do? Do you have to sit there and do the referees hand you a list? I mean, you tell it, you have to write it down? Like when you have such a large amount of penalties, how are you making sure you're getting that correct?
Well, luckily, there's an official, the penalty timekeeper, that is assigned to make sure that he gets it right. And usually, if it's Larry Weaver or Lon Weaver or one of the guys, Tom, Bob Hollenstein sometimes does it from the off ice official crew. It's their job to make sure it gets official. They get official information, and then they relay it to me. I try to write down as it's being called what I'm supposed to announce. But sometimes I have to change that depending on what the officials actually get in the way of official information. So there's not a lot of pressure on me anymore. Early on in the days of the 80s and 90s, it was more important for me to write it down as it was being transmitted by the on ice official. But nowadays, I just wait for the official announcement from the off ice officials, who usually give it to me on my headset, and then I'll write it down and announce it as I get it. So the pressure's off a little bit these days.
That's good. That's good. So is there ever a time for you, because you always seem like you bring the energy and as an extrovert myself and somebody who, I show up to family events and like, oh, now the fun can start. Jeff's here. Like, I know that can get tiring, but for you to have to do it for 19,000 fans, on a nightly basis during the winter, and then even now, doing your Grizzlies games over the summer, are you ever just like, ugh, I just don't have it today, but I've got to fake it? Like, how often does that happen for you?
Oh, it happens occasionally. If it's a kind of a meaningless game, let's say the Blues are not in a position to compete for a playoff spot or something like that. You gotta work at bringing your energy, no doubt about it. A lot of Grizzlies games during the summer, if the team's not that great and they're not in a position to fight for a playoff spot, and it turns into a 3.5 hour, 4 hour game, and which baseball used to do more often since the new rule in extra innings. It doesn't quite go that long usually, but there have been times where you lean back and you say, am I really where I want to be right now? It could be a better situation than what I'm in at the moment. But yeah, but that doesn't happen very often. Let's be honest. A lot of people would like to do the kind of work that I do, and I understand that. And I'm a fortunate guy to be in a position to do that kind of work. And I gotta remember that God has blessed me with a mental and I guess a vocal ability to do this kind of work. And um, when it gets to be drudgery, then I'll think about quitting doing it, I guess. But um, I think I'm a ways from that yet. But
That's great to hear. for the
Yeah.
city of St. Louis, the fact that you're that far away from it.
Well, I've told the Grizzlies that I'm thinking about stepping away from the summer work, maybe after another year, hopefully. At my age, you always have to couch it with, if I'm still around, but the blues gig has been so special, and if I'm remembered for anything, it'll be that. So I've told the Blues, as long as you want me to show up and as long as I can physically be there, I plan to be there. So we'll see how that all turns out over time, but I don't plan on retiring from the Blues job at all. I think there'll be a day when I can't get there anymore for whatever reason, and that'll be when I quit.
Well, when that happens, you give me a call. I'll come pick you up.
I will do that, Jeff.
All right.
I think you might have to get in line, though. I've heard about quite a few other people who would be interested in it too.
Of course. No, that's good to hear. Again, you think about your streak, 1987. I mean, that's a long time to still be doing it and still loving it. And it sounds like you do. So, for you, what do you like the most about what you do?
Well, it's a pretty sexy thing when you make an announcement and 19 or 20,000 people scream their heads off.
Yep.
And if I can do it in a way that is satisfying to me and exciting to those fans of the Blues, that's what really rings my bell. That's what hits my hot button. And hopefully there's a few things that I do on a regular basis, like make some noise tonight or whatever it might be, that are important to people and that they've heard for years and years, and it becomes a part of the Blues experience. Hopefully that's satisfying to them, and it's certainly satisfying to me to be a part of that sport. Hockey to me is a sport where it doesn't take much to be a fan of the people involved. You've got, most of the time you've got players on the ice who are fortunate and consider themselves fortunate to be professional athletes. And a lot of the other sports seem to feature guys who seem to feel like they're entitled to where they are. And you don't really get that too much with hockey players. And so you got that, and the people who run hockey and the Blues organization are all seemingly real down-to-earth people too, and people you'd like to be around. So, it's a family feel. Has been since I started, and somehow, even though the organization, the Blues organization, run by Tom Stillman and Chris Zimmerman, is maybe 20 times larger than it was when I first started, they still manage to make you feel like you're special to them. And for instance, at one of the games last year, I showed up in the suite where I work now, up at the press box level, which I don't think is going to change, by the way. I don't think I'm going back down to ice level, if anybody's interested in that, because of, I think, the pandemic. They put all of us PA announcers in the league up at a higher level to keep us away from the players during the virus. And they found out we could do our job just as well. And so I don't think that's going to change. But anyway, I showed up at my suite where I do my announcing from. And here, sitting on the desk where I do my announcing, is a nice little framed nameplate, like it would be on the back of a jersey, on the back of a Blues jersey, Calhoun framed, and it's, a nice little presentation. I had no idea I was going to get that. Showed up, and there it was. And, I asked Trevor, my boss, my supervisor there, I said, "What's this?" He goes, Oh, well, we just thought you'd like it. And, several of the people in the organization who are not full time workers got this, and we thought you deserved one. And so, it's hanging in my man cave down in my uh, theater slash bar area that I have at home. And, it's very special. When did I ever think I'd have my name on a jersey nameplate? But they made it, they made that happen. And, those are the little things that managers and bosses can do to make you feel like you're more than just a kid off the street, um, so the Blues are pretty darn good at that.
That's really good to hear. And you say you got it down in your man cave. I would love to see what is in a Tom Calhoun man cave.
Well, there's quite a few pucks from over the years that are signed by some of my favorites, Keith Kachuk and Al McInnes, and I've got a big poster size framed photo of TJ Oshie checking one of the Blackhawks players, and I'm in the background of the shot because I'm sitting at ice level. And so I had that blown up to be framed, and I had Osh sign it for me. And, that's a special thing hanging on the wall down there. There's another photo of Kevin Shattenkirk face to face with Alex Ovechkin when he tried to check him one time, and it almost looks like they're kissing. And I had that one blown up and framed, and Chatty signed it for me, and so that's down there. There's all kinds of other memorabilia, pucks and bobbleheads, and I see you've got a seat from the old arena, and behind you there, I've got one of those hanging on the wall as well, and just memories from the last 37 years mostly.
Yep. So one of those memories from the last 37 years is every Blues fan's favorite memory, 2019. We have not talked to you since 2019.
Right.
I mean, obviously you've had so many amazing moments that you've been able to experience, but seeing you with the Stanley Cup at the parade was really cool to see. So for you, like, is that the pinnacle? Is that Tom Calhoun's favorite memory as a Blues announcer?
Has to be. It's got to be at the top of the mountain. Actually, on the parade day, I would have liked to have been in the parade, but I got a call early that morning, and I was asked to show up at the stage under the arch because they wanted to rehearse a few things about the on-stage presentation after the parade. And so I didn't ride in the parade, which maybe I should have pushed it a little bit, how about me getting into the parade? I can do my announcing fine once I get down to the arch. But I said, no,
I've done this thing before.
I've done this a few times. Yeah. So I just went straight down to the arch grounds and waited for the parade to get there, like a lot of people did. But being part of that, announcing the team on stage under the arch, looking out and seeing a 500,000 or however many people it was on the arch grounds that day, and getting photos with Ryan O'Reilly and Jordan Binnington and all the other players that were featured in that Stanley Cup run. And, I've got a composite of those photos hanging on the wall in that main cave as well. And yeah, that was just amazing. I remember going up to Doug Armstrong on stage once they got there, and I walked up to him, and everybody was hugging one another. I love you, guy. that kind of stuff that people do when they're excited. And I hugged Army, and he hugged me back, and I said, "Boy, I'm glad I lived to see this day." And he said, "Yeah, me too." So that was kind of a funny memory. But yeah, that's easily the best experience of those 37 years.
So where were you at for Game 7?
I was in my man cave, actually. I was not asked to be part of the fan view down at the building that was
Mhm.
going on that night, the fan party, whatever you want to call it, watch party.
Yep.
So I thought to myself, the best place I can see this game and where I'll enjoy it the most is in my theater area in my man cave. And if we lose, I can, deal with it there. If we win, that'll be a wonderful thing. I'll have a cocktail and we'll celebrate in private. I've got video on my phone that I could probably play for you of my reaction when it looked like we were going to win the cup. And well, when we did win the cup, and when Brad Marchand was crying and all of that, I was dancing around my man cave like I had the cup over my head. I actually got to do a few days later, but yeah, it was a kind of a private celebration on my part, and I'm kind of glad we did it that way.
I've told this story in the show before, but that playoff run, every time that my wife and I decided to go out for a game, like, hey, let's go watch it at Fire and Ice in Kirkwood, or let's go here, let's go there. Every single time they lost. So I was like, okay, game 7, we are staying home. We're not doing anything. It's just gonna be me and you. Well, then I had a friend contact me and say, hey, I just got 4 tickets to the Enterprise Center watch party. He's like, do you and Jessica want to go? And I was like, I can't say no. Like, oh, and if they lose, I'm going to blame myself, but I don't care. I can't say no to that. Luckily, things worked out. It was great. But yeah, being at Enterprise, I think we even said that at one point. I'm like, man, the only thing missing is having Tom Calhoun here because, having you like still announce the penalties and the goals, like that would have been so incredible. But I will say, just being there and watching it on the big screen with fellow Blues fans, pretty memorable night. Never going to forget that one.
Yeah, I earlier in the playoffs that year, I was actually doing the goal announcements when the Blues scored and putting it up on social media. But for that game, I said this is going to be a more private experience for me. I'm just gonna take it as it comes, enjoy it, or cry about it, whatever it turns out to be. And I'm going to do it here in private with my wife, and it was still a fantastic experience. I think when your team wins the Stanley Cup, no matter where you're watching it, it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, it's funny, we all talk about, what if they would have won game 6, that way they could have done it at home. It would have been incredible. But now that I look back, and maybe it's different from you because you would have been there, but for me, it's like, I don't want it any other way. The fact they won it in Boston, the way they won it, the way game 7 went, it was just so exciting that it was like, I'm glad they did it this way. Like, I can't imagine it being any other way.
Yeah. I would have actually preferred that they won game 6.
Yes. Yes. You would have been there for that.
Because I was there. I was in the building. We actually had a rehearsal that afternoon for the Stanley Cup presentation.
Oh.
So we had those of us who work the games were asked to come in 3 or 4 hours early. I don't remember exactly what it was. And we had a rehearsal where I announced, ladies and gentlemen, the Stanley Cup. And they bring the Stanley Cup out onto the ice, and ladies and gentlemen, Gary Bettman will now present the Stanley Cup to the captain of the Blues, Alex Pietrangelo. And we go through the whole 9 yards. They didn't set off the fireworks that they had set up for it or anything like that, but everything else we had rehearsed in case they had won that night. And both of my sons, I made sure were in the building for that game, and even though they were both living out of town at the time. So yeah, game 6 win would have been a little more special for me, I think, memory wise, but I'm just glad we got it done in game 7.
Yep, me too. Yeah, more than anything, the fact that it happened at all is something I never thought we'd see. So I was very
Yeah.
happy with any way it happened.
Hopefully we get to see another one sometime soon.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you too. Obviously there's a lot that goes into games, and your career has spanned across how many decades now? 4, 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is incredible. So from when you started doing this to where you are now, what is the biggest change that you've noticed with being the PA announcer for the Blues?
Uh, as far as the sport itself,
Yeah,
or
sport itself or your job in general, like anything that's a big difference that you've noticed.
all right, as far as the sport itself, um, the change is that the people, the human beings that play the sport, are another 50% bigger than they were back in 1987. I mean, we have enormous human beings playing the game of hockey these days. Back in those days, when I first started, if you had a player that was bigger than 6 feet tall, he was a big guy on your team. Uh, Nowadays, you're talking about 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" people playing defense or whatever position. And, if you had somebody that was over 200 pounds, they were a big guy back in those days. But nowadays, you've got your Zdeno Charas who are 6'9" and 260 pounds or whatever he was. And they're not uncommon. So that's the big thing I notice. There's not nearly as much room out on the standard ice surface these days as there was back in those days. Brett Hull would have never scored 84 goals if he were playing today, because there was a whole lot more room to maneuver out there during the days when he played. As far as my job is concerned, when I first started, there was no video board.
Oh yeah, true.
What we had was an organist, me on the microphone, and a set of 3x5 cards that I read my script from.
Oh man.
I was handed 3x5 cards when I showed up at the game on a particular night, and they said, "Okay, here are your announcements for tonight. Slip them in wherever you can." Now everything is totally scripted out. We've got a log that identifies almost to the second everything that's going to happen from the time the doors open until the time the doors close on the building. And it goes boom, 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 right down the line. And other than the announcements I make for penalties and goals, everything else is totally scripted out. Video, audio, organ, recorded music, in-game hosts, between periods presentation. The whole thing is put together and so well by Blue Note Productions, Trevor Nickerson and Anna Goff, and the people who run that department just have it all buttoned up. And it was not anything close to that. I used to have a button back in 1987 in front of me on the desk, and I would push the button, which turned a light on the top of the organ, which is up at the higher level in the old arena. And if I hit the button and that light went on, it told Ernie Hayes, who was playing organ back in those days, "Don't play on the next stoppage in the game because I've got an announcement I want to make."
Oh man.
That's how sophisticated it wasn't back in those days. And yeah, it was really that way. And then, I'd have a set of announcements that were supposed to be made during the between periods that, there was no video support for any of that. So it was really a whole different presentation and much, much, much less sophisticated than it is now.
Yeah, that's a huge change. So one of the smaller changes that I've noticed, and as you go through your career, there's things here and there that you've added. Like one that I particularly want to call out is when at the start of the game when you're announcing the starting lineups, you now do the hometowns of each player.
Yeah.
Was that something that you were like, hey, this would be a cool thing to add? Or was that something that other people decided and told you, hey, we're going to start adding this?
I don't know what the impetus for it was. I think maybe one of our presentation people heard that in another building somewhere, that one of the other teams in the league might have been doing that, and decided it was a good thing to do. And I want to say Mike Caruso, who's been with the Blues as long as I have, and is still with the Blues in a communications role. I think he might have heard it in another building or something and said, that'd be a cool thing for us to do. And so a couple of years ago, we started doing it. And now I have to keep not only a roster of players and their numbers, but also my players and their numbers and their hometowns. So I can add that into my starting lineups whenever I do it.
Yeah, now they're gonna tell you you need to do handedness, date of birth. Like they're gonna start adding everything in. It's gonna take you the whole game to get through the starting lineup.
Now I have to do Cherepovets, Russia, and Vaxio, Sweden, and places like that. And when I'm introducing our players,
Have you had to go to the players and ask them how to pronounce some of their hometown names?
no, I don't get to interact too much with the players, and I think they kind of would prefer that I'm not hanging around in the locker room all that much. So, I really haven't. Usually these days, because of the internet, you can call, go to your phone and say, "Hey Siri, how do you pronounce Cherepovets, Russia?" And usually Siri will. Here's what I found. Usually Siri will give you some sort of interpretation. And there's other sites on YouTube and places like that give you pronunciations of wild and crazy hometowns.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I wanted to ask you about also the Grizzlies games. So again, I mentioned that you've been doing the Grizzlies games. I went to a game a couple weeks ago, and I'll admit I totally forgot that you do that on the side as well. So I was like, when I walked in and I heard your voice, I'm like, oh. I looked at my wife, that's Tom Calhoun. And she goes, oh, is it? So, yeah, now I feel like I really want to watch a Blues game. It's like every time you talk, I'd be like, oh, Blues hockey, 73 days away. And like, it just kept coming to me. So, how often, how long you've been doing it? And two, what's the biggest, obviously it's not the same type of sport, but what's something you get to do in baseball that you don't get to do with announcing hockey?
Well, I started in 2003, so I've had 21 years or so of doing Grizzlies games too in the summertime, and there's a part of it is the fact that I was a baseball guy when I was a kid. I always played baseball in the summertime. In fact, I played in an all-star game as a shortstop at the original Busch Stadium back in the late 1950s. So that'll tell you a little bit about how old I am. But yeah, I was all over baseball, and if my career had gone the way I originally planned it to, I would be Joe Buck these days, calling baseball games for national TV. I'm not complaining that things have gone the way they have. I'm pretty happy with the way life has turned out. But, that was my original plan, to be a baseball announcer for radio and or TV. But, baseball and doing PA for baseball games, at least at the Frontier League level, which is the league the Grizzlies play in, allows me to be a lot more casual about what I do. If something happens in a game and I can make a reasonable or funny comment about it, I'm encouraged to do that by the ownership and the management. As a matter of fact, the very first game I worked for the Grizzlies, Rich Soje, who's a wonderful guy and the owner of the team, came into the press box and walked up to me and he said, "I want to, first of all, welcome you to doing Grizzlies PA announcing. But he says, I want you to do one thing." And he kind of said it in a stern way. And I what the heck is this? And he said, I want you to have as much fun as you possibly can. And that was my charge from the owner of the team, to have as much fun as I possibly can. How can you not like that? So, and he said, he followed that up with, at this level, we are throwing a picnic and a party. And oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on too. And so that's kind of how they approach it. And so somebody like me, I can rarely open the microphone and say something that won't be well received. So that takes the pressure off. You have a lot of fun with it, and those people there that run the Grizzlies have, at their level, done a great job of making it a family friendly kind of an atmosphere and fun thing for moms and dads and kids to come to. And it's great to be a part of that as well. So it's a much different experience for me as far as my job is concerned. And it's a relaxing approach to work, the public address system there, and keep people informed properly, of course, but also have fun with it.
And so again, you Blues, Grizzlies, a lot of people may not realize, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, you're a well-educated man as well. So at SIUE, you got your bachelor's in mass communications with concentration in radio and television broadcasting. And as you mentioned, you went back and got your master's at Lindenwood in advanced communications theory and practices. I hope I have all that correct.
I believe that's right.
Yeah, right. So I wanted to ask you. So I've been playing a game with our guests that we've been having on and switching it up, kind of catering to that person. So I want to play a game with you. Is this Lindenwood or SIUE? I have 10 questions for you, and you have to tell me if this is something about Lindenwood or SIUE.
Okay. I'll see if I can handle that.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, it's a 50-50 shot, so I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right. This college was founded the same year Ecuador annexed the Galapagos Islands on February 12th of that year.
That had to be Lindenwood.
That was Lindenwood, 1832.
Yeah.
So you're 1 for 1. This school participates in the NCAA as a member of the Ohio Valley Conference.
That's SIU Edwardsville.
That is correct.
Yeah.
2 for 2.
And by the way, that first question, Lindenwood originally was a women's college, women's only college, not, co-ed. So.
Yep. And I know that one of the original buildings is still, I believe, one of the women's dorms.
Yeah, right.
That's fantastic. So we are 2 for 2. Let's see if we can keep it going. This school's original location was at the campus of Shirtlift College in Alton.
I'm thinking that almost has to be SIU Edwardsville. Yeah.
That is correct. That's 3 for 3. This university houses a stadium that was built in 1976 by the St. Louis Cardinals NFL football team as a training camp location.
Yeah, that's Lindenwood. And unfortunately, one of the big events that happened there for the old football Cardinals was the tragic passing of J.V. Kane during a practice there that stadium. Yeah.
Man, you are killing it, Tom. You are at 4 for 4. Let's see.
You're throwing me softballs here, Jeff. Come on.
All right, we'll get some hard ones. In 2018, this school's women's bowling team won the national USBC Intercollegiate Team Championships held in Lincoln, Nebraska. They actually defeated McKendree University in the final round.
Okay. Boy, that's a little tougher.
Yep.
That could be either school, actually. And I'm going to say that's Lindenwood.
That is correct. It was Lindenwood. Yeah, defeated McKendree University in the final round. So somebody right down the highway from them. Very exciting. All right, on to question 6. You are 5 for 5. We know these schools are the Lindenwood Lions and the SIUE Cougars. This school once housed 2 live animals of their mascot from 1968 to 1985. That's the question.
Okay. Yeah, Shemega, the cougar, was on campus during the days that I was going to school there, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, a lot of people thought that because she was confined all the time, that it was an inhumane thing for Shemega to be penned up all the time. They would bring her out for special events. But they had to be real careful because we're talking about a mountain lion here.
Yes.
Out loud. So Shemega, I think, eventually passed away, and they never did replace her, if I'm not mistaken.
They did have it looks like Kina came in for about 5 years after that.
Okay,
and,
well,
and then
all right.
I think they released her to a wildlife reserve.
Okay, I'm misinformed on that then. But.
Yep. So apparently Shemega, do you know what that word in Apache means?
No, I don't.
It means cougar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there you go. So, man, you got that one too. Yeah, the Apache word one. That was just a bonus. So our 7th question, from 1969 to 1980, this school's campus hosted the Mississippi River Festival, which was a summer outdoor concert series that featured performances by the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra and others.
The others are the ones I remember from the Mississippi River Festival on the SIU Edwardsville campus. As a matter of fact, when I was going to school there, hopefully I'll keep this story short. On Fridays, some buddies and I used to go to a place called Vanzo's after school in Edwardsville and have a couple of beers and play some pool and things like that. And early evening rolls around and a couple of guys say, well, let's go out to the MRF site and see what's going on out there. So as we're driving out to the MRF site, there was a road that went behind the stage and the tent area where the performers would do their thing. And I rolled down the window on the car as I'm in the back seat of whoever's car it was, I don't remember. And I heard this song playing from the stage. And I said, I've heard that song on the radio. What is that? And one of my other buddies said, oh, some guy named Elton John is playing tonight at the Mississippi River Festival. It was Your Song was his first hit song in the United States. And he was playing that at that time. And Elton John, nobody hardly ever knew who he was. I think he was actually not the headliner that night. I think he was warming up for somebody else who was playing that night at the Mississippi River Festival. So
that would be a heck of a story if for people who went and saw him perform there. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, number 8. This school has won national championships in skeet, trap, and clay shooting.
Oh, Lindenwood is famous for their shooting program out there. They've got a lot of national championship shooters and are very proud of that program as part of their athletics offerings in St. Charles. Yeah.
There you go. So that is 8 for 8. Yeah, we've never had a perfect 10 for 10 in this show. So here we go.
The pressure's on now.
It is definitely on. All right, so this one's right in your wheelhouse. So let's see if you get this one. The official student magazine for this school is called The Legacy.
The Legacy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, I'm not familiar with that term, but the official newspaper, the campus newspaper at SIU Edwardsville is the Alestle, which stands for Alton East St. Louis Edwardsville. It's kind of a, what do you call it, an acronym for those 3 cities. So I'm going to have to say Lindenwood on that one.
Well, sir, you your deduction skills are impressive. Yes, that is correct. It is Lindenwood's paper, The Legacy. All right, this one, I think you'll get this one too, so we'll see. The center of the core campus of this school is the Stratton Quadrangle named after William Stratton, who served as the governor of this school's home state from 1953 to 1961?
The Stratton Quadrangle is in front of the University Center building and the Center for the Arts on the SIU Edwardsville campus.
That is correct. 10 for 10. You know what? I need to have you back on and make these questions way harder.
You know, you just happen to have a subject matter that was in my wheelhouse today, so
That's true.
I'm glad I was able to keep my streak alive on good answers.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you got a streak here on this show as well as with the St. Louis Blues. So you're just all things Blues. Tom, always a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate it. I do have one favor that I'm hoping that is not intruding at all. I was going to ask you, we talked about starting lineups. Could you use my name in a starting lineup right now?
Sure. What number do you want?
I'm number 94, and I'm from St. Charles.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
What position?
Defense.
Defense. Okay. Hometown?
St. Charles, Missouri.
St. Charles, Missouri. Okay.
I'm so excited. And
starting on defense from St. Charles, Missouri, number 94, Jeff Ponder.
Yes, there it is. That is going in the beginning of every single show. No, I had to do that just because Bill and Curt aren't here, and I'm like, he did mine. He's never going to do yours.
There you go.
Tom, I really, really appreciate you coming on. Always fun talking with you. I want to give you a moment to let people know how they can find you on social media, interact with you, and if you've got any projects coming up that people should be on the lookout for.
Okay. Well, I do have a website. It's not the greatest website in the world, but it kind of connects people with me if they want to go there. It's paguytom.com. And you can find some of my previous work and voiceover stuff that I've done in the past, a couple of blog posts and that kind of thing. And if you want to connect with me, there's a way to do that. Also, I do cameos if somebody's interested in that. You know, you can go to cameo.com/PAGuyTom and order a birthday wish for somebody, or, I do some anniversary wishes, congratulations on the new job and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't cost too much. And I try to give some of that money to charity and make it worth your while to go there. Excuse me. And also, I've got a project coming up that you can kind of put in the back of your mind that might be coming along in September. I'm working with Bruce Affleck and the Blues Alumni Group to do a podcast of my own. I've taught podcasting here at Southwestern Illinois College for a while, and really haven't ever done one seriously myself. But I'm looking forward to doing one. Working title is Blues Legends, and we'll be talking with a lot of former blues players and coaches and people that I think hopefully would be interesting to the blues fan base. And maybe once a week or once every other week or something, we'll put one out there and hopefully entertain some people that way. And I don't think it will detract from your audience very much, Jeff. So you don't have much to worry about there.
No, and the beauty is that I think our audiences cross over clearly. So they listen to yours and they're like, hey, let's hear about current blues. Let's listen to Let's Go Blues Radio. So I think there's a relationship there to be had.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
That's right. Well, Tom, again, PA Guy Tom on Twitter, X, PAGuyTom.com is where you can find him. He is Tom Calhoun. He is the Blues PA announcer now and forever, hopefully. Tom, thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Jeff, thanks for having me, and all the best with all you do.
Thank you. Well, I again want to thank Tom Calhoun for coming on. And man, his name, it just flows, right? Like you get those names, like Brendan Donovan is another one, Cardinals player that I just can't call him Donovan or Brendan. I call him Brendan Donovan. Same here with Tom Calhoun. It flows. It's just a pretty name, Tom Calhoun. So just, very cool. And again, good luck to the Grizzlies as they continue their run. And awesome to go to a Grizzlies game and hear Mr. Calhoun call the game. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do that. I know they've got a limited amount of games left this year, but next year, definitely make your way out there. It's a lot of fun. Next week, I believe, I'm not 100%, but we're at about 90%, I think. We're going to have some gentlemen from Hockey North America, HNA, which is the league actually I play in and I captain a team in. They want to weigh in on the situation we covered 2 weeks ago, Save the BHL. So again, the BHL, if you missed that episode, is a long-standing league here in St. Louis, and they basically are losing their ice because it has been sold to H&A. Again, not stolen by H&A because they rightfully have the right to that ice as much as anyone. But obviously the BHL is a long-standing tradition in St. Louis, and you can understand why the players want to keep it around. It's kind of a cherished thing. A lot of cool things have come from it, and obviously it impacts local businesses. So I'm interested in getting the other side of it from the Hockey North America people. Again, just a business that stepped in, bought some ice time, and kind of get their take on it and what they think and how that whole process went down for them. So we will get the other side of the story next week. So make sure you tune in for that one. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Email him at mike@strikewithmike.com today for all of your home buying and selling needs. That's mike@strikewithmike.com. And by Wolf Power Washing, St. Louis's premier power washing company with the best rates in town. Call Joe Wolf at 314-420-5434 and get the best looking and greatest power washer in the area. That's 314-420-5434. That will do it for the Chris Beckford Sioux episode 45. I got them both in. I wanted to work both players that have ever worn 45. I got them in. Episode 45, Season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Curt Price and Bill Day, I'm Jeff Ponder, and I will talk with you next time. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues. Go get 'em, Army.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
You thought I was going to say, son of a bitch, didn't you?